Second time, it's Yo Maps featuring Omarion with Superman. If there's one thing that I really, really believe, it's in our super girls. The reason why I'm saying what I'm saying is because we're going to get into a conversation now that I actually low-key can't believe that I can relate to a degree. But I also really applaud people who are able to say, I'm going to rise above the occasion. I like people like that because at the end of the day, guys, life is tough. Life is very, very, very tough. And the last thing you need to do is beat yourself down when life is already beating you down. And I know that we don't get a lot of places and room for empathy. So at the very, very least, show yourself some empathy. It is 6:28 Central African time. And our author feature for today, we are going to be talking about the beauty and battle of single motherhood. This morning, as we continue our reflections on human rights and the strength of the African woman, we speak to an author who has turned her lived experience into a movement of healing. Wendy Figlan's debut book, The Beauty and Battle of a Single Mom, is a tribute to every woman who has ever doubted her strength while raising a child or / children alone. It is a story of breaking cycles, daring to dream, and the constant dance between struggle and purpose. Wendy, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So let's talk about this. I mean, there's a lot of roads that kind of lead to single motherhood. I mean, you could have been married and then had a child and then things don't go well. Or you could be, maybe just a one stand, poop, come out the child. There's a lot of things that can kind of lead to that. Tell me your story, love.
Look, I was in a relationship, okay, and I think everything was going well until I fell pregnant. And then that's where my journey began. Yeah,
So
that's where my journey began.
So you navigated pregnancy on your own, or you just felt the breakdown of the relationship kind of started at that time?
The breakdown of the relationship started at that time. And I think what hurt me the most is that I am also a product of teenage pregnancy, and I myself don't know my father. So then history started to repeat itself, even though I personally felt that I have done everything in my power to mitigate, to close the gap and make sure that it doesn't happen to me, because I had my child at 30 because I was like, maybe it's my mother's mistake, and I am going to mitigate this and not have a child, a teenager. I'll probably get someone older and wiser and who's done this life thing and has had his fair share of life. Guess what? History repeated itself again.
But now, I don't want you to put it on yourself. I feel like we can do whatever it takes to avoid something. But if the journey is, leading there, ultimately it will lead there, right? So, I mean, I can imagine, being pregnant and dealing with the breakdown of the relationship, and now saying, okay, there's a possibility that I'm going to be a single mom. I mean, what were you going through during that time?
Look, I went through the most, I'm not going to lie, because now obviously I had to raise this soul that I love deeply while trying to heal as well. So I didn't really get that much of a chance to focus on myself, because I had to make sure that I focus and pour on this little human. It was very tough to a point that I ended up suffering from depression. It was not an easy road, and it is still not, but we're here now and we soldier on.
And what's the relationship with the child's father currently?
Nothing, non-existent.
I really, and I don't want to make this gender specific, right? But I think when you look at situations like that and you ask yourself, okay, I know that kids don't come from the man, like they don't come from a man's womb or, whatever, so forth. But you know that you have a baby. You know that you have a soul out there that loves you. Like, what is going through your mind? As a man, knowing that your child is out there fending for themselves. And the fact that you can just act like they don't exist. I mean, do you ever sometimes think about that?
I was speaking to a friend of mine and I was saying, how do these people sleep at night? Because I know personally, I'll never be able to sleep at night knowing very well that I need to take responsibility. I need to take accountability of my actions, but I don't know how they sleep at night. And guess what? They do sleep at night and they do continue with their lives as if nothing is happening. That's why we end up having to go to court, just to be able to get something out of it, and that alone becomes a battle on its own.
So what are some of the battles that we go through, or as women who are single mothers, what do you go through?
Look, I went through emotional battles, hence I ended up suffering from depression. I was on antidepressants for a good 2 to 3 years. We go through financial battles. I watched my life crumbling right in front of my eyes because when people talk about motherhood, I've always heard the beauty side of it. And I think no one really told me that we go through these battles. And when I had my child and when I started going through depression, financial battles, it's a very lonely road. And that's why I ended up writing the book to create awareness, to let people know that they are not alone and it's not easy, but we are in this together so that people can feel seen. People, single mothers, can feel heard and know that they are not alone in this journey because no one really talks about these things. So, writing this book for me basically was to create awareness and say that you are not alone. We are in this together.
I always say that I was telling my mom the other day that the one thing that I feel like moms don't particularly realize, which it makes sense why they don't realize it, because in the midst of, trying to figure this parenting thing out, you don't really see it. But how lucky are you to also experience your child as they are?
Yeah.
Like, you get the raw human being, you get the relationship that can never be bought. There's no items that you can do, like there's nothing that can possibly buy the connection that you have with your child. What are some of the biggest misconceptions about single motherhood?
Look, I think single motherhood, it's the stigma. It's the judgment. Society tends to judge single mothers. I wrote this book to create that awareness, to break the stigma, and to say to society that instead of being judged, that we are incomplete or we are not enough or it is our fault, society can support us because I do think that we are the strongest survivors in society and we are playing dual roles. We are the ones that chose to stay and be everything while the other person decided to be nothing. So I wrote this book to say to society, support us. Don't judge us. Don't label us, calling us names, because I do believe that if you support or invest in a single mom, you are investing into the future and you are investing into Africa. Because when I did my research, I found that more than half of the population, the children of the population, are being raised by single mothers. So now what does that say about the future? The future clearly is in our hands. And therefore, we need all the support we can get because we are raising the future.
And shame, it's sometimes it's so unfortunate because the lines get blurred a little bit. A lot of the time, men kind of use conversations like this to say, yeah, but what about single dads? And it's because we don't necessarily experience what we experience, not to invalidate anyone's pain. But I think if you guys want a platform, then perhaps write a book, right?
Correct.
What are some of the other stories that you hear from single moms where you're like, the things that they go through? I know that, for example, with my aunt, she's a single mom of two young ones, and they're growing so quickly. But you can see sometimes, there's a part of herself when I think of her maybe 7 years ago before the kids were born. I mean, that girl's very different to the woman now. She doesn't go out as much, and there's a bit of the loss of freedom, that you kind of lose as a mother. So talk to me about that. Some of the other stories that you hear from other mothers.
Look, you are 100% correct. I agree with you. Even myself, when I had my child, I felt, as I said, I felt like my life was crumbling right in front of my eyes. You kind of lose that freedom, and you watch the whole world passing you by. Life changes when you have a child. Your priority changes when you have a child. You do things differently. You no longer prioritize yourself because you've got this little human that you are raising. It is not easy. Every decision that you take, it is based on this child. Life is no longer about you. And you try to do your level best, even in terms of education. You try to go back to school because you've got this little human that depends solely on you. So it's really not easy. You end up losing friends. You end up being lonely. As I've mentioned, it's a very lonely road. It is a very lonely road, especially when you don't have support.
So let's talk about now something that I know a lot of the stigmatizing of single motherhood comes in, dating as a single mother. How did you navigate that? Are you still navigating that? I know a lot of the time single moms put dating on hold. They kind of put their needs and their desires on hold for the sake of the kids because you don't want to confuse your kids as well. But let's talk about that.
Look, I think that is a very sensitive topic because I myself also have put that department on hold because you know how the dating game is. One thing that I don't want is to introduce my child to different men. My
Yes.
child is 10, turning 11. He's never met not even one soul. He even asked me, Mommy, when are you having a boyfriend? Because I want to have a stepfather. And I said
Oh.
to them that I said to him, my child, I hope you know what you want because that's something I don't want to introduce to you. I don't want to introduce that to my child until I meet someone where we speak the same language and we have the same dreams. But
Yeah.
until then, I'm sorry, it remain my child is not. I'm sorry, my child is out of limits.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get you because also it's not easy, especially dating now is it's harder than it's ever been. So I can
Yeah.
imagine, the thought process of having to navigate that. I want us to hold that thought and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to look at what is to come because I feel like this can't be the last book that you do. It's your debut, so we need more and more and more from you. But we're going to chat about that as soon as we come back. It is 6:40 Central African time, right here on the Oasis.
This March, escape to the Friendship Village for a premium festival experience like no other. The Montreux Jazz Festival experience brings together more than 30 exceptional local and international acts, including Robert Glasper with Bilal, Stacey Kent, Salif Keita, Tandiswa Mazwai, and Mandisa Janjis. From the 27th to the 29th of March 2026, indulge in world-class music, culture, and luxury. Book your ticket now at ticketmaster.co.za or visit mjfsa.com. The Montreux Jazz Festival French Hook, where timeless music meets timeless beauty. Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za. Start your weekend grounded and refreshed. Join Ntsako Mhlanga on the Oasis, Saturday from 6 till 9, only on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Welcome back to it. It is the 6:41 Central African time, 19 minutes to go before we head to the top of the hour. And I can't wait for us to continue with this conversation because really, I think it's important as well when you do identify that you are, or rather kind of go through the process of being a single mom, that you receive support from the family, especially financial support, man. I feel like that's so important. Imagine carrying the load of a child and yourself, one man. Like I'm thinking about my wallet, girl, and I'm barely carrying myself. So I can imagine, Wendy, some of the things that you've experienced, man. How can families support single moms?
Look, I do think that we need all the support that we can, but we need to realize that our family is not always blood.
Oh.
As you grow up, you're making your own family. I've made my own family. I do have people that I call family, my go-to people that I know that it's just I just make one phone call and things happen. So family is not always blood. As you grow, you make your own family, and I have made my own, and I do get the necessary support that I need. I do have people in my corner. Even if I would be out of town, I know that my child will be with a friend that has turned into family, and I know that he will make sure that he's at school, everything is done, and he's got his lunch and everything. So family is not always blood.
I think that's a
But we
beautiful
do
thing.
need the support.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a beauty about womanhood and girlhood. When that community comes together and we really understand and share those sentiments. I mean, heck, there are some married women right now that are single moms, funny enough. There are some women who are
100%.
single moms even in their own relationships. So I definitely, not relate, but I could understand and empathize with the journey. What can we expect from you? I know it's not going to be the only book that you do. We are prophesying this, but what can we look forward to?
Look, currently I am busy with a book tour around South Africa. I'm praying that because I know that this is not just an issue in South Africa, this is a pandemic. I'm praying and asking God to help me to reach the whole world if possible, but it's something that's in the plan. This is my vision because this is my ministry, this is my altar, and this is my offering to single mothers. So I'm praying for God to open doors that I can be able to tap into that global stage and be able, to offer this offering to all the single mothers around the world. As I mentioned, this is a pandemic. It's a global issue, and I do think that single mothers need to know that they are not alone and that they are not crazy. And those tears that they cry, they are not tears of weakness. If anything, they are tears of love, because they are playing a dual role of being both a mother and a father, and finding the balance between the two. I think it's one of the hardest things. And definitely, this is not my last book. I am busy on another book that I'm writing, and I have a lot in me to write. So definitely, this is not my first and last book.
We love an African storyteller, honey. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can we find your book? Where can we find you on social media? How do we support you?
My book is available on Amazon, and my social media handles, TikTok is Wendy Figlan, Instagram, Wendy Figlan, Facebook, Wendy Figlan. But the most social media that I'm active on is TikTok and Facebook, both Wendy Figlan.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Wendy, for your time today. And listen, you're doing a great job.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing stuff. It is 6:45 Central African time, just 15 minutes to go before we head to the top of the hour.
Thank you, Mami.
Thank you so much. Before we head to the top of the hour and hear what's happening in our news. But for now, some great music right here on The Oasis.
Download the SABC app